Hey, you made it. I finally got round to watching Blue Eyed Samurai from Netflix, and I've got to tell you, I think it's overrated. So I'm going to get into why I think it's overrated and the things I don't like with it first, and then I'm going to go into why I actually enjoyed with the series. In the first episode with the fight with Taigen, something didn't quite feel right to me. The fight between Mizu and Taigen didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and that is for one particular reason. See Mizu beat everyone pretty easily, they don't really take any damage, she doesn't really get hurt at all by any of the lower ranked people, but then they want to fight Taigen, who, as it's shown earlier in the show through exposition, that he's one of the best samurais around. He's beaten like 23 people already. So it stands to reason that he would be a pretty good fighter, and that makes sense. And he beats Mizu in the initial fight, but instead of being like, yeah, let's kill him, they turn their back to them and just start walking away. And I couldn't help but think, who in their right mind who is a samurai is going to do that, especially one of his skill level? It doesn't make sense. It felt like it was just done forcibly to make the plot happen so that Mizu could take those wraps off their arms and legs and then she could just kick his ass. I understand, like, that's what it's just to show that they're really, really powerful and they're a lot faster and they have weights on them to slow them down. But nobody is going to turn away like that. And I find this lack of realism throughout the show quite annoying. It's like sometimes they decide that she is human and she can take damage and she can be beaten, and then sometimes they decide that she's just invincible and just everyone's just stupid and they have massive plot armor. I feel like it's got to be one of the two. They're either resistant to everything or they take damage from everything and things are as real as they can be, because no one is turning their back on someone after a fight where they've just won. They don't just leave you in fights like that. As it's shown in the rest of the series, when there's a one-on-one duel, someone's dying. They're not turning around and being like, oh, yeah, cool, and then she cuts his ponytail off and that's the end of it. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I feel like it's only when it's convenient for the plot. It stands to reason as well with the Abijah fight right at the end. He's squeezing her to death, and then suddenly he's like, oh, actually, no, your bones break like a woman or whatever it is he says, and then he stops killing her. It just doesn't make any sense. How is she getting up after that and killing him, or overpowering him, sorry? How is she getting up after that, overpowering him, and then winning the fight? It just doesn't make any sense. And yet another fight, when she takes damage, she is properly injured and she really struggles to move or even struggles to, like, carry on after that. She has to be, like, restored or healed over a period of time. So it's like, sometimes they decide that's happening and sometimes it's just she can just tank everything and it makes no sense. That fight in particular really annoyed me, the Abijah Fowler fight in the final episode, because you see previously he's shown to be really, really powerful, especially with a sword, cutting the rows, and Mizu noticed that he cut the rows in that way, and you know that they're a very skilled swordsman, and yet you never see it. And it's like, you could argue they're trying to show that the guns were dominating the swords in Japan at that time, and that was the turning point. Yes, I understand that. If he's such a good swordsman, why doesn't he just kick her ass? Clearly he was more powerful than her in the castle bit as well. Like, he just destroyed Taigen and then shot Mizu, but you felt like you wanted to see them battle it out sword to sword, not her get shot and that be it. I just feel like they really missed a trick with that. So that was my main problem with that one. Another issue I had comes from the voice actor of Heiji Shindo, who literally sounds like Tribor the alien from Final Space. Like, no disrespect, they must be a good voice actor to have got the role, but he just does not suit the character at all. He just sounds horrific. He just, every time he opened his mouth, I just thought of Tribor from Final Space, and it ruined every scene. I don't know if that's just me, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it. I genuinely thought it was the same voice actor until making this video, where I realised it isn't actually him because Olin Rogers voiced him, but goddamn. I'm going to play a clip side by side so you can see the similarity, but it just completely ruined the immersion for me.
Our guns? I don't understand. Where are they?
Are you idiots? Why would you all be idiots? I think you're all very smart.
That's just a minor little nitpicky thing though. But yeah, the other issue that I have with the show is the entire premise of the story is based on the vengeance of Mizu for their mum, and also for obviously them being born and everything to the only 4 white men in Japan. Totally understand that. But then the bride and the Ronin in episode 5 suddenly decides, oh, actually no, her mum isn't dead and she's come back, she was never dead to begin with. And that immediately ruined a big chunk of the story for me, because you know that the vengeance isn't really based on that anymore. And I understand, yeah, she's now got nothing left to live for at all. She killed her husband and her mum died at the same time. But it just felt like a very throwaway episode. I feel like they could have done so much more with that. And I don't know what the point of bringing her mum back to life was. It just felt like, oh, she's here, but you obviously know she's dead, so woo. And she could have saved her. Like, she could have turned around and stopped her from being stabbed, but instead she just let it happen. So I really didn't understand that. It ruined the whole like vengeance plotline. It's like, I'm doing this because my mum was killed. Like, okay, well, she wasn't though. She was killed later on, not in that fire that you said at the start. So that other part was a really annoying thing for me. It just got on my nerves from the second I saw it. And I thought at least maybe with her husband or something, they were going to train and that was going to be like how she learned how to use that staff. But instead, they didn't do any of that. It was like, oh no, she's more powerful than me. I'm going to go and tell the military and they're going to come and arrest her. I understand why they did it. Like, at that time, if a woman were to beat you, it would be pretty disrespectful to you. You would struggle to then come to terms with that. But I felt like the way the show was in the first place, they weren't going to go down that route, and instead they just did that, and that was it. It felt like a very weird episode, and I honestly could have just done without it entirely, and it would have done no different to the story, in my opinion. In fact, the story would have been better because the vengeance plot would have made more sense instead of being her mum's dead, her mum's not dead, now her mum's dead again. No. But yeah, that was the other thing that really bugged me about it. I just could not understand why they did it in that way. Those are the things I didn't like about it. The things I did like about it was the character development, other than that her mum dying and not dying thing, was really good. Like, they developed the characters really well throughout it. I really did enjoy what they did with every character, basically. They all had like a good story arc and a good and interesting sort of finale as such. The animation style was done really well as well. I really enjoyed how like it wasn't afraid to be gory. It was really like in your face and just them being really, really powerful and just killing everyone. Like, it was a satisfying show to watch at points. The villains were really good, other than the fights between Abijah at the end being just a bit dominated by plot armor. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. The same with the Four Fangs. It was just interesting fights, fun fights to watch, and they obviously had that human side where they could get stabbed and injured. Obviously, I've already said that I didn't really like the way they did it, but some parts of it were done well, so I can't argue with that. But I just wish that the story wasn't leading up to another story. I kind of thought it would end with either Mizu dying to Abijah and the story has a really tragic end, which I personally think would have worked better than this, like, he's basically killed her, oh no, he hasn't killed her anymore, she's overpowered him, and now they're off to London. It just forcibly sets up a second series, but that's just common with everyone these days. Like, every series seems to just force a second series no matter what the story's about. So that aspect I didn't particularly like, but the show as a whole was good. It's just those little issues with it that I found kind of ruined the immersion for me and the story in general. But yeah, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, and it's probably going to get a lot of hate because everybody absolutely loved this show apparently, but I just found a lot of it was just not very good for that respect. Even the way Princess Akemi was, like, her storyline, as much as it was good character development wise, it just felt very much like plot armor again. Like, her telling that guy who like sells the prostitutes where she wants to be sold to and dictating it to him, it just felt very like fake. It felt like that's just not how it would be. And I understand that it's a TV show and it's made up, but I don't understand why she'd have that much power over him. Yeah, you could argue that she's like that good at being able to talk and manipulate people, that's what she did, but she had no experience doing that, so it doesn't make any sense why she would be immediately amazing at it. It just, I don't know, felt a bit wrong to me. So last thing to cover is the bit where they're escaping. You just know Seki is gonna die, and through that gap, and then he just dies, and that's it. It just felt like such a stupid end to his character. Like, all this stuff he's done, and he just dies anyway. It wasn't even like a spectacular death, he just got shot in the back, but whatever. Anyway, it's been a bit of a rant about how overrated I thought the show was. You're all going to disagree with me in the comments, and I know you're going to hate and come up with everything you possibly can to be like, no, the show's really good. Yeah, okay, it was good, but there's problems with it, so, like everything, really. If you've made it this far in the video, please make sure you subscribe, it'll really help the channel out. I hope we keep making these videos for you guys, and with that, I want to thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.